I have payroll manifest dated January 20th, vendor manifest dated January 24th, two intent to excavate for rocks, and I have a request for an abatement that just actually came in today. It's actually a request
This
for
guy
the
can
board
be
to
full.
waive
This is not an issue.
interest. And this person was late in paying their bill
Is that
because their husband was hospitalized with a stroke. Because he normally handles the bills, this bill was not paid until late December and now has interest added. And she is requesting that the board forgive the interest, which is in the amount of $10.43.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to waive
I'll
the
second
interest.
it. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. There you go, Suzanne.
That's it.
Any questions of Suzanne? All right, moving on. Any old business? Where's Dan? Okay, do you have any old business? Okay. Any new business? Okay, from there we go to the selectmen's report. Selectmen Aaron.
Conservation, like I said earlier, they are working on the driveway permit. It should be going out to bid. So hopefully next week. And the town's land committee, we're gonna spend some time. There's a lot of work. They need to do a lot of work on all this land. They know the problems and stuff, and that's why we're gonna reach out to other communities that really invested a lot of time and stuff in there, so we can use their resources for information. Thank you.
Select person Haddock.
So our select board meeting on the 14th, I was not in attendance at. I also was not in attendance at the rec department due to an extenuating work scheduled professional absence. My apologies.
Oh,
That's good, 'cause I thought you was on vacation.
I was not on
can I
vacation.
comment for that?
No.
I was city council chambers.
No. Selectmen Hatched.
Still no meeting scheduled.
Mr. Hatch.
No update, is that a meeting?
Yeah, went to the library, and most of my thunder was stolen by the moderator, but like I said, candidate forum and the other part was there. Something that we need to realize is that each month the Village Barn, for the month of January, the entire month of January, Village Barn is donating 10% of all the sales on gas to the Barrington Public Library. And that's all I have.
And on Super Bowl Sunday, for every pizza you order at Cozy's, they're donating $2 to the library.
Fantastic. Dan?
Could you, I could barely hear you. I'm sure the people didn't hear that.
Oh,
Because I was coughing.
No.
Sorry.
I can hear.
I think it was well heard.
It was,
The audience has stated it was well heard.
you just wanted me to hear it,
Okay, moving on, public comments. Does anybody have any public comments, please? Chief?
I guess my question is, John had on the agenda for the paid per call firefighters and EMTs, and I know that Tracy had another question, or weren't convinced that the FSLA has been properly answered. I guess what I'm asking is, if, assuming that that question gets answered, the way that I sent the email to you folks, the information that I have is that we're not obligated to pay the 2 hours. Can I move forward? I'd like to move forward with, in the process of getting this policy, if this is the only thing that's left holding up, I think there's a couple options. If you choose to pay the 2 hour minimum, so be it. I'll make it happen. But really what I need to do is, we're not paying a stipend right now. We haven't been paying a stipend. A stipend is what you pay the fire chief before you hired me full-time, in which I got an amount of money, and there was, in effect, nothing attached to it, and that's not what we're doing. We're paying people have been paying people from the beginning for the amount of time that they've worked. We've used a quote system rather than an hourly pay system. We're just trying to clean this up to make sure that we're in compliance. But more importantly is that if you folks would at least approve the hourly rate schedule, I could move forward and develop the policy for administrative scrutiny to send to the town labor attorney to make sure that the policy that we're operating by is legal once we get the last question answered. When we move forward with our EMS on-call, we developed a policy, the town attorney reviewed it, made some minor recommended changes, we made the changes and the attorney was happy with it, and that's I intend to go that direction too, because, or it would be my intention that we go that way so that if we had to defend whatever it is we were doing in any way, shape, or form, we would be using the town labor attorney to do that. So I want to make sure that we have his blessing before we get it started. But I'd like to get moving with a policy, but in reality, I need to know is, are you guys even interested in approving this, or what do you want me to do? I know there was a question on the 2-hour minimum, and if that's the only question that's left, can I get a consensus from the board? Then in theory, if we get that question answered for Tracy's approval, that we can move forward and...
Takes the board's approval.
Well, I know, but what I'm trying to do is say, I'd like to move forward with a policy.
All right, please, we have a request from the chief. Is there any comments? Selectman Hardikoff.
So, in reference to that, Chief, if it comes back the way that I think it's going to come back, you may have to go back and rework your budget and the numbers.
I think that I'm comfortable that we're going to be okay on my part of it, that we're not going to be required to pay the 2-hour minimum, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, dollar difference wise, because most of these calls are a little over an hour anyway, so we're not talking a lot of money.
And the other statement I would make is that I have done absolutely no work in comparing the various steps that you've provided for the ranking of the fire department, and I've done absolutely no research in reference to the additional funds hourly that you wanted to pay for certifications. So making a decision is not anything I'd be ready to go forward with until we have the answer from the federal inspector.
So this is pretty frustrating to me because I've sent a couple of emails to you folks, and had you asked me to get them numbers together, I certainly would have done that. So it's frustrating to me to come in at this point in the game and say, you want more information, because I clearly asked.
I don't want more information. I haven't studied what you're recommending for the rates.
See, I took it to mean that you wanted rates of other. I think you're going to find that in the email that I sent you folks in the past, that the average is still going to stay around the $15 an hour that we're paying, because there'll be a few that'll be less than that, and I'll use the assistant chief, the EMS chief, and the assistant fire chief. They'll get about a $2. So the assistant fire chief would end up with he'll end up with about a $2.25 an hour increase over what the way the point system works at $15 a point. But averaging my current roster and where they are in responsibilities and stuff, it's going to put the pay scale on average of about $15.50 an hour, which equates to about 50 cents an hour more than what we paid in 2018, and that's kind of along the lines of the way I budgeted. I did throw extra money in there because, as when I went through the budget process, the part that we don't have is we don't know what we have for emergencies. Are we gonna have 350 emergencies, we're gonna have 450 emergencies? So, I believe my numbers show that there's about a $10,000 increase in that line, just to cover the fact that we don't know what the call volume is. And so that part-time hourly line will always be a little bit fluid, because after, like anything else, after 3 years, we could take a 3-year average and say, okay, this is pretty much what we've been spending the last 2 years, so it'll be a little bit easier to add to budget for. But I think the unknown is the budgeting for it right now. The other side of that is that I'm comfortable that we can operate within whatever we need to do in the budget, because there are other avenues based on, if we got into, if we get near the end of the year and we were out of money, obviously we still got to pay the people, but the EMS revolving fund allows for the voters approved paying some EMT staffing out of that line, so we would be able to take a little bit out of there. Obviously, that's not the #1 choice, because we should be putting enough money in there to cover the replacement of ambulances down the road, but I'm comfortable that we can make the numbers work. I'd like to move forward and get a policy together for the attorney, so that
Let me have the board's consensus that we turn around, just a minute, Mr. Air, that we move forward with this, and then we'll have the policy before us, and we'll have the rates before us, and then we'll have it in writing, we can all look at it and make a better determination. In the meantime, it'll allow for the federal piece to come back, and so it'll cover everything.
I'm personally of the opinion that if the expectation operationally is that you're going to pay 1 hour and then 15-minute increments rounded up, and then we move to a 2-hour minimum employee-based policy based on the Fair Labor Standards Act, that is a huge difference in your budget. And I'm not comfortable making a decision until we have that information returned.
Well, I understand it, and that's why I put it the way I did. Is why don't we allow him to move forward, get his policy written, and put it together, and then by that time, hopefully, we will have the federal notification come back on how that works. It's not making an approval of it, but at least we're going one step further ahead. I don't know how the board feels about that.
Well, I think most people know my position, that I wasn't a big fan of this anyway. I
Yep.
like staying the way we are. The idea of going to part-time hourly starts putting us in that position where you're going to have people who are going to run the risk of racking up hours.
But no, that's not true, Andy. It's really not called part-time hourly. That's how you pay them an hourly rate, but it's called paid per call. And so they're not coming in and hanging around the station and being paid for it. If they're towing off right now, that triggers, as long as they respond to the emergency, that triggers that time of call. That's how they start getting paid. When the call is completed, when the truck gets back into the station, or the ambulance gets put back in the station, that, assuming that they went and covered the call and they don't have any work to do when they get back to the station, it's just a case of putting the truck away, shut the lights on, and go home, the clock stops at the time the truck comes back with a 1 hour minimum, and then rounded up in 15-minute increments. Now, once in a while, if we have a really bad car accident, or we have a structure fire, which requires us to come back and reload the trucks and clean equipment, then yes, if they're a half a dozen times a year, you could end up with another hour's worth of work when you come back to the station. So the vast majority of these guys and girls are going to be looking at somewhere between an hour and 2 hours for the calls that they respond to. And so, assuming that we run about last year's numbers, say 350 fire calls last year, that amounts to be about one a day, a rough number, that's going to last about an hour a shot. Now, obviously, some of those happen during the day when these people aren't around, which is full-time staff. And some of them are gonna happen at times when they're not available anyway, and the average response right now is about four people. What we're trying to do is get that response up, which is why I'm going to this type of a policy and pay them a little bit sooner, pay them a little bit more money, in hopes that instead of 4 people showing up, we get 7 or 8 people to show up. Because if we can do that, then it eliminates the need for me or whoever the chief is to come back and actually hire more full-time people. And the bottom line is the town has an obligation to provide the service. And, you know, full-time people are expensive. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to foster call members and volunteers to come in and do this. So it's not, we're not going to pay people to hang around, and we're not going to pay people to hang around on Saturday or Sunday or hang around the station and they're on the clock. They're only going to get paid if they respond to the emergency.
Select person, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I noticed you made a statement as the town has an obligation to provide the service with a volunteer fire department. There's kind of an implied consent that we provide a very minimal service with that regard.
No, what the state law says, that the town has an obligation to provide fire protection. In one shape or form, we have to provide fire protection, whether it's the worst fire protection in the world, or it's the best fire protection in the world.
We do.
We have an obligation to do that. And again, I've said this countless times, and I stand by that. You know, I want to do everything I can to have our call volunteer people a very active group of people, because at the end of the day, it'll save all of us as taxpayers money. When you look at, by the time you take and pay a full-time person's salary, and you're paying them to be waiting for a call, and you're paying them every time when you're paying a portion of their insurance or all their insurance and stuff, you know, that cost gets pretty expensive. And in my mind, you could make a pretty strong argument that you could pay me $15 an hour to be at the station, ready to go when that emergency comes out, or you could pay Tracy more money than that per hour. I'm not advocating to do that, but by the time you pay me $15 and then add $5 or $6 or $7 or $8 an hour in benefits, you can make a pretty strong argument that we could pay Tracy $20 an hour to be ready to go and pay her only when you need her. And that's really what I'm trying to do when I call people.
Tracy?
So 2 things occur to me, Chief. You've done a great job over the years of attracting people that would like to move into this type of work. You indicated at a prior meeting that we have trained approximately 15 firefighters that have moved on to other communities. So I don't think you're going to necessarily see a decrease or lose your opportunity in receiving potential applicants that would like to be call firefighters here, because it is becoming increasingly more difficult for people to find departments that will front firefighter 1 and 2. And the other thing that you stated that speaks to the reason that I'm concerned about this 2-hour minimum, if this is a call response and you put out a call and you're encouraging more people to respond to the call, there are times where that's important. But with any response, sometimes it's just fire engine 1 that needs to report because an alarm went off in a building. Sometimes it's 4 people that need to respond because we already know that there's a fire within a structure. How are you going to mitigate putting out response times and having 8 people respond that you're now responsible for a 2-hour minimum for? And the reason that question becomes so important is twofold. You've gone from volunteer to rights as an employee in the state of New Hampshire and under the Fair Labor Standards Act. It is very, very different to be an employee than it is to volunteer.
And so that would be a perfect problem to have. I would love to have the problem of having having to assign people and say that we're only gonna have a certain number of people on shift. 40 years of doing this, 40 years ago when you had 50 or 60 calls a year and there wasn't a lot of stuff going on in town and people had a desire to come out and do this, you had a bigger number of people coming out to do this. People are not beating the doors down to come into Barrington to be a volunteer firefighter or EMT. When we don't, I just picked up 2 new EMTs that I'm trying to get broken into the process, but we've not had a new member in a number of months. People don't beat the door down to come do this, and what I'm trying to do here, it's important to understand that we've been paying these people in a stipend type system, which a point equals basically an hour's worth of work. So they've been getting $15 a point, and I was liberal in the fact that if it was an hour and a half, I gave them 2 points. I didn't give them a point and a half, I gave them 2 points. And so we've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. What I'm asking for, and what I said during the budget process is, the problem is that the assistant chief, the assistant fire chief, and the captain and the lieutenant get the same thing as the brand new firefighter coming in, but they have a much broader responsibility. And so that's one part of it, is to be able to separate these people and show that you're going to get a little bit more. The other side of it is that what I'm really hoping is that the people that say, you know what, the chief will get out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and go chase that call, will say the chief shouldn't be doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning, I should be doing it. That's really what I'm trying to do. I'm an old guy, and I love what I do, and if I gotta get out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm okay with it. But what the town needs to understand is, the one way to put it, I'm gonna be as blunt as can be. If I drop dead right now, and you handed what I'm doing in the hours that I'm putting in at 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning, and said that to your current assistant fire chief, and I'm gonna speak for him, because him and I've had that conversation, okay? He's not gonna do what I'm doing because he doesn't have the ability to do that. And the problem is that my job as the chief is to make sure that I'm mitigating or minimizing the number of holes that are gonna be left to fill when I'm no longer doing this job. And that's really, this is a step in where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to foster more response from our volunteers so that we have them coming out and covering these calls, because you're right. Sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning when your smoke detector's going off, and it only takes a couple of us to go and take care of it, but a couple of people have to get out of bed and go do it. And sometimes I come around the corner and the fire station's dark, and I'm like, okay, am I gonna go do this by myself? Do I wait a couple minutes to see if somebody else shows up, or do I start another community out here to do this? It's where we're at. It's the fire service. You know, and Barrington's not any different than the city of Rochester, the city of Dover, or any of these other places. They pay all their people, but they could have 50 people on the roster and they put a box on because of a fire. That doesn't mean the 35 people that are not on duty are coming back in. And a lot of times, Barrington goes to one of their communities because they're not getting the people back, because these people have made decisions, hey, I made my paycheck, it's the way it is. And people, you know, where your husband's the chief, how much of a turnaround does he have down there? You know, it's the business, it's where we're at, and it's going to be a constant struggle for us. And the days of the volunteers coming in and doing this are, it's not there. I don't have people beating the doors down saying, geez, I'd love to come volunteer for you. They have limited time. They're being pulled in a bunch of different directions by their family. They in most cases, both the husband and wife work. So there's a real limited amount of time, and you're 100% correct. Some of these calls, or the vast majority of the calls, we do 2 or 3 people to handle, but I need to make sure there's 2 or 3 people to do that, and that's really where I'm at right now. Darrington will be, if I think I can make this work so that myself or the next fire chief isn't coming to you as I'm in the town and saying, we need to hire 20 people, because the only way we can do this is to have 4 shifts with 4 people on each shift. And then that's expensive. And I intend to be a taxpayer in this town till I die. Now, I want to do my part to keep the prices down. So this really is nothing more than, one, doing what I can to keep the finance director happy, to make sure that we're operating within the Department of Labor regulations and the FSLA regulations. I will say this, we have always tried to do that. We have never, ever, knowingly, I've gone to the town administrator or the finance director or human resources and said, hey, can I do this? And then sometimes they look at me and say, no, chief, you can't do that because it's against the law, and then they keep me straight. And we've always done our due diligence to, much like we have with this document, I'm comfortable with the answers that we have here, that if somebody misspoke and we did have to defend ourselves, that the state or the federal government will understand that we didn't do it maliciously, that we did not try to take and jam somebody up, that we did our due diligence, and might we have to pay some back pay if we did something wrong? Maybe, but we likely won't get fined, because they'll sit there and say, you know what, they did their due diligence, and that's really what this is.
Chief, I appreciate your comments. Dan, you have a comment?
Yeah, real quick, chief. I don't know who sent it, but I emailed it, I looked at my phone, you have verbal confirmation. I don't like verbal confirmation, who are you, or who sent it, someone sent it, I took it real quick on my phone. I don't feel comfortable with that, me personally. And then, it's not just your department or whatever, we're in trouble.
Mr. Aaron, I would ask you to stay on point.
I am staying on subject.
Stay on
No one
point.
interrupt me, I can spit.
I'm
Mr.
asking
Chairman,
you to-
I can say whatever I want.
Yes, you
You
can.
cannot interrupt me,
But
cannot
take your
control
time.
what
I'm
I
not
have
here
to
to have
say.
a discussion. I'm
No.
asking you to stay on point.
I
Thank
am
you.
staying on point. But basically, our society as a whole, it's not your department everywhere. Places are shut down because of labor. And there's not a labor of love anymore. And basically, our generation coming up, it's gonna get harder and harder. And who's gonna go clean your septic system in the future, Mr. Chairman? Do you know? Probably not too many people.
Not to me. So,
I didn't mean to make this.
the question,
Feel I just need to-
Chief, please,
Right.
what I want to ask is, do we want to turn around and ask the chief to write his policy up so we have something to review and take care of it, and get one step further, waiting for that other piece of information to come to us?
I'd recommend that we get information back first.
All right, that's the people that wants the information back first.
I wouldn't want to
Any other
put chief
thing?
through that until the information's returned from our legal.
Does everybody else feel the same way?
From my standpoint, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
I
it's-
mean, he can, if he wants to go write it, he can write it, but it doesn't mean anybody's gonna rule on anything.
No,
It just could be a wasted effort, that's all.
all right, chief, that's it, they want to wait until the information comes back. Thank you for your time. All right, public comment. Well, stand swear, thank you, I almost forgot. Any other public? Just state your name, sir.
Here's you, Brian. My address? Hall Road. I'll try to make this really quick.
3 minutes.
You have a, well, you got 30.
Please, Mr. O'Brien.
First comment is HTA on the bridge on Malago. Not impressed with their oversight from the last project they did in Barrington. I was there a heck of a lot more than they were there. And if you break it down, at 100, even at 100 hours, it's still over $1,000 an hour. That they could oversee that job site. And you know, before the project even got started on Young Road, I made some comments and they just ignored everything that I even said. Yeah, it is, I'm just not standing next to it, sorry. So we as a town had to go back and put a swale line in after the fact. So, that being said, I feel that we could definitely find a clerk of the works or someone within the time frame that we have to be able to oversee this job and spend a lot less money and put that money back into the state bridge projects, whether it be for our project or some other town who needs that money. Because that's a big fund that's throughout the whole state. And if we try to do our part, saving money, I feel that, you know, whether it be the Old Settlers Bridge or the Green Hill Bridge, we can still sharpen our pencils and do what we can for. So, that's the first one. Second one was the people race. Been doing it for 25 years now. I actually ran a lot of the original races since they started. It'd kind of be a shame to try to pull the plug on it right now, this year. If you were going to pull the plug, it should have been last year after the race was done and someone looked into it. That being said, the road's going to be closed 2 months after that anyways. So what's one day, or more or less an hour and a half being closed, moving forward this year, and then revisiting it and talking to the Chamber of Commerce and whoever puts it on and says, let's figure this out, you know, if you want to use our road, you're going to have to do this or that. But I don't feel that, you know, this year you should really pull the plug on it, because all of a sudden it is not there.
No, we didn't pull the
Well,
plug.
no, but not vote.
We turned around and asked why they made the change, just a select few instead of the whole town. And that's gonna be looked at, so I mean.
Right, and that could have been looked into a long time ago too, before they came to.
Well, this is the first time the request came up.
And then I was gonna say something else and I can't remember now.
Please.
Thank you.
Town hall?
Oh, he supports the library, claims it.
No, I think the town hall is a great idea, a design build. You know, and just moving forward with that location, I still think is a little iffy, but it is what it is. And one last thing, Hard Rock. Any info on Hard Rock on that project?
We're still waiting for a hydrology study approved by the state as to what impact it might have on the aquifer before it can proceed.
Okay. Are we gonna plan on giving them a small extension, since now it's gone into the second year of their 10-year contract, if something doesn't start soon?
They haven't asked for one yet, but that would be up to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien, thank you for your comments. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion. I'm sorry, I have one thing to go here, somebody, as some of you may remember or not, but I'll remind you of that during the times that I was running for election, I was trying to put my signs up in different places, and the Board of Selectmen notified me and others that of areas that we could not put our signs up. One of the areas mentioned was down in front of the transfer station. Put them there in the front of the area, so the only place you could put it was where the three roads come together. The other section where you can't put the signs is in front of the public safety building, from the corner, around the side there and down the other end to where the brush line was. They told me I could put it there in that little wet area, and put him in front of the rented town hall. I put him in front of there, and I was called to ask to come back, so you can't put the signs there. I just want to remind everybody that because of the way the elections are coming up, and originally it was set up for no town property, but some of that got changed, so just be careful where you put your signage up when you do it. Just there.
Say right away, he knows what it is either. The state workers do pick it up.
They do.
They have a big collection of them.
Yep, and you just have to go down and get yours out of there and put them somewhere else. Thank you for comments. Any other comments from the board? I'll entertain a, you have a comment?
Nope.
I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I was actually going to make a motion to go into non-public
Under what?
personnel.
Reputation?
We have a motion to go into, I'll second that.
Air eye.
Hardikoff, aye.
That's right.
Bailey, aye. Will
Will we return?
Will this require a vote?
Will this require anything to announce when we come out?
I don't think so. I don't know. Look at what I'm holding up.
I know what you're talking
Okay.
about. Okay.
I have no
We will
idea.
not be coming out to public session except to turn around and to adjourn. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I didn't bring
Was
mine when you did.
that scheduled for tonight?